Bayern to make a big play for Dybala, Liverpool chase Leeds star, Chelsea want Rice, FIFA proposes a new rule, and a transfer roundup all coming up in the next few minutes. As I'm your host, Matt Folick, you are the Onefootballers, and this is the Daily News. So first off, and apparently Bayern Munich can make a pretty big play for Paulo Dybala. Now it was unconfirmed reports in Italy that the German club are looking to add him to their side, but I'm not entirely sure whether this is completely true, mainly because Bayern have such a good attack already. Paulo Dybala has found it slightly difficult to fit into a fixed position in Juventus in recent seasons, mainly because Cristiano Ronaldo was there, then Gonzalo Higuain came back from loan, and lastly but not least, they don't really play with the number 10 if Paulo Dybala were to play in that position. So, even with all the talks that he was almost going to move to Spurs last summer, and that Manchester United wanted him as well, it doesn't seem completely inconceivable that he'll leave the club. I'm just not overly sure he'll go to Bayern Munich. After all the coronavirus and after all the financial problems, Bayern Munich will still come out of it in a pretty good situation. They're an incredibly rich club. So will they pay the 72 million that's currently Paulo Dybala's transfer market worth for the striker? Yes. Do they actually need him? I'm not so sure. Do I think Dybala will move? Probably not. He may leave Juventus, but there's no way he's going to fight A, with Lewandowski, B, with Thomas Müller, who's had a brilliant season and just signed a new contract at the club, and C, he's not even going to think about going out wide. Firstly, because he's not a wide player, and secondly, because he'll find Gnabry, Coman, and potentially even Leroy Sané at Bayern Munich in his way come the summer months. For me, I can't necessarily see this one happening, but I could see Dybala leaving the club. Anyway, moving on to the next story, and apparently Liverpool are leading the chase alongside Manchester United and Manchester City for Leeds on loan star defender Ben White. Now, basically, he's on loan from Brighton, and although manager Graham Potter has said that he's a big part of their plans next season, let's be honest, there's no way Brighton are going to be able to turn down a big money move for the 22-year-old. In fact, I mean, this is no disrespect to Brighton fans, but if Leeds get promoted, even moving to Leeds would be a step up. Like, they're newly promoted, Brighton are going to be fighting relegation for the next few years. They don't have the strongest squad, and Leeds are just a bigger club with more history, unfortunately. Anyway, alongside this, Liverpool are the ones who are looking for a central defender, mainly because Dejan Lovren is leaving in the summer, but also because that then leaves them a little bit light at centre-half. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk is there and seems to never be injured at all, but Joe Gomez, he does have a little bit of an injury in him from time to time, so Ben White could slot in alongside Van Dijk absolutely perfectly. He's young, he's English, he's had a promising season in the Championship at Leeds United, at the top of the table, so why wouldn't he fit? At the moment, his value is only around 5 million, but of course, once the season finishes and if Leeds get promoted, I'm sure his value will absolutely skyrocket, especially considering that he is English and that so many top clubs wants them. I'd be amazed if any club paid more than 25 million for him though. And moving on to a transfer story that was kind of thrown around in January and then died down a little bit, and now, because there's not much else to talk about, it seems to be fired up again. That is that Chelsea want to re-sign Declan Rice. The West Ham midfielder actually left the club as a 15-year-old when he was still a schoolboy, and well, it looks like Chelsea could be willing to part with 70 million for him. Ha! 70 million, never. There is no way that Declan Rice is worth that kind of money. As I spoke about before, transfer fees are rather odd because they could mean so much more to the selling club than to the buying club. For West Ham United, they'll be selling a star midfielder, a regular starter, their future captain. That is worth 70 million. But Chelsea are going to be buying maybe a backup, maybe a squad player, who knows? They've already got brilliant players in that position like Kante and Kovacic, so he's probably not worth 70 million to them. Anyway, regardless of the fee, maybe Chelsea could find a place to fit him in their squad if they get rid of a few players. Now, apparently, Michy Batshuayi is a striker, so that doesn't really count, but Ross Barkley could also be part of this deal. The reason that West Ham may sell is because they need to be funding a massive clear-out. Bringing back David Moyes, well, in my opinion, wasn't the smartest decision, but anyway, West Ham, for all the money that they spend, for all the good players they've actually got, don't seem to be gelling together as a team. For whatever reason, it's just not working out, so they're going to have a clear-out before bringing in some more quality players if they're ever to realise their ambitions of breaking into European football. Anyway, despite all this, I'm not so sure Declan Rice is worth 70 million, but hey, you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And next up to FIFA, who are actually doing something sensible for the game for once. They've proposed a new law which would see 5 substitutes available to every team when competitions restart. This is because, as expected, most leagues are going to have to jam in an insane amount of games in such a short period of time if they're all to be done before the start of next season. It could especially harm teams like Manchester City and Juventus, who may have between 18 to 20 games to play. There's about 10 games to play left in the Premier League. There's 12 in Serie A. If you add into the fact that both Juventus and Manchester City are still in cup competitions, and as well as this, they're still in the Champions League, which has quite a few more rounds to go, this could be a hell of a lot of game time for players who not only will be playing every few days over the space of like 2 months or something, but also on the back of not really training so well and not really having a pre-season. In fact, from March to, let's say they come back in May, that's the equivalent of longer than they'd normally get from a pre-season. They'd normally get 6 weeks, like mid-May to the start of July, and then have another 6-week pre-season. So from them doing this to going straight back into football is going to cause a hell of a lot of injuries. Anyway, the lawmakers, the IFAB, are the ones who are responsible for this, but it seems like it's more than a formality, and it will mean that FIFA get this law to be passed. However, there is one little thing that's rather interesting on top of this, is that the substitutions will need to be made still within 3 breaks of play. Now, normally within a 90-minute match, there are 3 breaks to play for 3 subs. You could do 1 per break. Obviously, with this new rule, even though there are 5 subs, you'll still have to do them within the 3, meaning there could be 2 double substitutions. That's rather irrelevant, but just something a little bit nerdy that I quite enjoy. Anyway, moving on now to a roundup of the rest of the day's transfer news that you might have missed. And apparently, Moise Kean's return to Serie A could be with Napoli. Chelsea were interested in Philippe Coutinho, but now switched their target to Bayer Leverkusen's Kai Havertz. Celtic have opened up contract talks with Odsonne Edouard in the hopes of keeping him at the club. And lastly but not least, the City Football Group, which owns the likes of Manchester City, New York City, Melbourne City, and a few others around the world, is apparently going to complete the purchase of their 9th club, which is Nancy in the French 2nd Division. So there you have it. That's all from me on today's daily news. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And whilst you're at it, smash the like button and click here or here to check out all of the other videos we've got going on OneFootball. But until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you guys later.